Hello. Nice. Back. Okay. My name is Yoav Giladi. I'm going to talk today about. I'm a plant breeder. I'll talk about cannabis breeding, industrial hemp breeding, and I was asked to talk about the new genome editing tool, CRISPR-Cas9, that everybody's been talking about lately. I hope you enjoy it. I live in the Arava, in the desert of Israel. That's where we grow our medical cannabis. I work at Teva Adir, a licensed grower for the Israeli for the Ministry of Health. And okay, so breeding is actually creating new varieties of plants, and the most important goals when it comes to breeding is, first of all, to make a plant which is a good agricultural crop. The previous presenter here talked about the things that we look for in terms of yield, cannabinoid profile, whether it's high THC, half THC, CBD, high CBD amounts, everything according to the table dictated by the Ministry of Health and all of its categories. And creating new strains is not a very easy task, and sometimes you need to screen a lot of potential candidates, and these are, I took all of these pictures myself. These are some of the cannabis strains that we're breeding. And when you come and you see a cannabis flower, it's very hard to know what's the chemical content of it. So does anybody know what's a high CBD strain here among these? It's very hard to tell. And for example, okay, I'll show you. This is a cannabinoid profile that you get. This, for example, is a cannabinoid profile from industrial hemp plant from a Colorado-based company there. And okay, so as a breeder, there are several tools that are available through classic breeding, Mendelian breeding, which are, because the cannabis plant has been cultivated by humanity for thousands of years and was distributed all over the world by the British Empire, there are many varieties of cannabis, and that were grown in different growing conditions and yielded lots and lots of phenotypes. And as you can see, it's very clear that, and once you get to smell them, they all smell differently, they appear differently, and what's the most important thing is what the patients eventually, what's the review about the strain, what they think, how they feel, whether it's long-lasting. Okay, these are things that need to be, you have to sit with every patient and really evaluate what kind of medicine you got here. And this is not an easy task, and breeding takes a lot of time. And so I'm going to talk about the history of genetic engineering, and then I will explain why the new advantages and the new tools that are currently available. So in the past, I'm going to take you back to the 1950s, where wheat and barley there was starting to be genetic engineering of wheat and barley using radiation, gamma ray radiation, which was the only tool back then to create a big genetic diversity. And for millions and millions of years, 3.5 billion years of evolution created a big genetic diversity, which is a great toolbox for breeders. But there are several traits that breeders needed to fast forward, like reshuffling the card deck, you know what I mean, to create more diversity and more tools to work with. So back in the 50s, the trait that the breeders were looking for in barley was early flowering. So you can make more crops and do spring cultivation and a lot of advantages, and this was obtained, and the majority of the barley that created the majority of the beer that everybody drinks here today was back in the 50s was radiated by gamma rays to create these changes that led to early flowering. And it's very apparent that using radiation creates a lot of side effects and possible changes and maybe damage to the DNA during the process. The second example of ancient breeding is the rapeseed, the more commonly known as canola, which was bred through mutagenic substances that also may cause damage to the DNA, EMS substances. But this created the canola seed oil. I don't know if your grandmother's grandfather, they didn't have canola when they were cooking. It's a new thing. It was created in order to, there was a toxic oil compound that needs to be reduced, and this was the only way to reduce it, using mutagenesis, which is not specific. After going through the process, the breeder had to sow thousands and thousands and thousands of plants and had to screen them. Those were the ancient methods. And then the techniques got a little bit more advanced, and everybody knows the story about corn in America and the problems it created with the increased use of herbicides. I'm going to give a good example about the papaya in Hawaii, which there was a big epidemic, a viral epidemic, that just eradicated all the papaya plantations in Hawaii, reducing the yield to 20%. And the only way that this epidemic could be battled was using transgenic plants that were basically immune to the epidemic. And it's very important to explain that from a plant breeder's perspective, if you deal with the viral infections, then you can sometimes get from the natural population resistance, you can get a certain kind of tolerance, but getting 100% immunity can only be obtained with advanced genetic editing. And of course, the clementina, the citrus that peels very nicely when you take it off. This was also, it could only be obtained by radiation. So these are the old school methods that were the toolboxes of breeders throughout the last 100 years. And then came the CRISPR-Cas9 technology. Only like 5-6 years ago it emerges, and now I see many labs in Israel that endorse this technique because, first of all, the specificity, it's very specific. You can target a region in the genome and go exactly there. And if you have a sequenced genome, then you can eliminate the off-targets, and it's, till this day, the best humanity came up with. That's the best technique to really edit the genome. I'll explain a bit about how it works. The second advantage is that it's very cost-effective, and the most crucial thing is the leave no trace. If you operate wisely, eventually you can breed out all the elements of the technique and creating an organism that doesn't have the traces of the whole process and only has the desired change that we created. And this is very, very crucial when it comes to regulation, specifically in the United States. And was back in April 2016 was the first example of the USDA approving a mushroom that was treated with CRISPR-Cas9, and it was not considered GMO because there was no trace of foreign DNA. And this is very, very important in terms of public opinion, but also it's elegant. It's way more elegant than anything we used to have. I'm going to give an example about genome Cas9 here from a Volcanic Center, the lab of Amit Galon. So the CRISPR-Cas9 is comprised of two elements, the scissors and the guide RNA. The guide tells where to cut, the scissors, they cut. You have to insert the scissors before and you have to take them afterwards. That's the genius of the method. So the example is from cucumbers, but it is easily applied to cannabis, and there are several viruses that attack cucumber. And the only way to combat them was to get full immunity was to target a certain protein, because I don't know if you know, but the viruses, they hijack the cell protein and use it for their own cause. So interfering with that interaction by creating a certain deletion in the genome created immunity. You can see for the CVYV, the ZYMV, complete immunity. And I'll tell you that for me personally, I'm really interested in implementing this technique on cannabis. And I've been working for years on finding viruses that attack cannabis or industrial hemp. And I don't know if there are there are many people here. If anyone knows of viruses that attack the cannabis sativa plant and have proof for it, please come to me. I'm eager. I'm going all over the world trying to find viruses that attack cannabis. And first, it's a good thing that I haven't found yet. There are not a lot of publications about it, but it will come. In every agricultural crop, there's an epidemic that will come as we progress and make more, as the cultivation progressed, viruses will come. And okay, so the CRISPR-Cas9 has to start from tissue culture, which is the big disadvantage, because tissue culture can create stress to the plant and it can change a bit its properties. So this is one of the biggest disadvantages. And now I have to say to all some of the businessmen here that I've been approached many times, and people come and say, oh, well, just look at this CRISPR, it's such an amazing technique, and cannabis, it's a rising market, let's combine and let's see, and let's patent it, and let's make millions. First of all, I have to say that the CRISPR-Cas9 is meant as a research tool, and it's an amazing research tool, really, to understand metabolic pathways by doing knockouts, and really, first of all, to understand the mechanism, this is a great tool. And commercial applications for it has to be done after years of research, and that's the only way really to move forward. And do you have any questions? Yes.
You were talking about CRISPR technique. Can it be used to increase or decrease cannabinoid content?
Well, it depends which ones. There are, as you know, in the cannabinoid metabolic, in the biosynthesis pathway, you have, when you come from the CBG, diverged into 3 different pathways, so which 2 of them have a great similarity. So for sure, there are certain cannabinoids that can be increased or decreased. It has to come with proper research, but I can give you an example that people are looking at creating more divaronic acid for example, in the end product, and also creating CBG-rich strains looks like the easiest task because of the similarity between the CBDA and the THCA synthase sequences, more than 90%, like 90% similarity. So it's easy to target these sequences.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.